Before we continue with the next part of the program, a few people have been asking me what's going on that we opened up the curtains. We just wanted to get some more cool air in here. My wife told me an update on the table. There's another type of quiche on the table, but don't run yet. You'll have an opportunity for that in a few moments. Following the next presentation, we're going to have some dancing, opportunity for you to eat a little bit more, and then another presentation, and then dessert. I promised some people they have to be home for the 9th inning of the World Series, because we all know that nothing goes on this year in the World Series till the 9th inning. I really called my fellow Bronxite, I grew up in the Bronx, Joe Torre, and asked him to win in 5, so we wouldn't have to worry tonight. But we don't know the score yet. We'll find out for you. Jacob. It's always a pleasure, again, as I said, to have family and friends join together. And this evening, this whole Shabbat. What? Okay, where is she? Is Chaya anywhere nearby? I think she's out. Good, she's here. Also was reminded there's a sign-in sheet, sign-in board outside. Please do that anytime during the evening. And don't think that it's wasted. I still have the one from my wedding. It traveled with us throughout our history. My father, may rest in peace, once told me when I was fighting with my brother, says, "You only have one brother." My father was 1 out of 11 boys, mostly boys and some girls. And he says, "What would you do if you had 10 brothers and sisters?" So I didn't miss a beat, and I told him, well, I would get along with 4 of them, and 6 of them I wouldn't get along with. It would be fabulous. But as God ordained, I have one sibling, one wonderful brother, and it also gives me an opportunity to thank my mother, because I'm actually not going to thank her any more than just say thank you, because as a son, it's impossible to thank one's parents. Wow, I think that's a first. And it's impossible to recognize and appreciate a parent till you're a parent yourself. And the trials and tribulations that my mother went through as a survivor, and I'm sure anybody who's met you has met her, has told you that she lied in bed for 9 months to have me, because she doesn't let me forget. But thank you for everything, Mom. And my mother and I see eye to eye on a few things, but we know that we love each other, and she's always there for me. I tell friends, when I tell them the appreciation I have for my mother, wow, I gotta practice this before the weddings, because that I know that no matter what, I can call my mother up, whatever day, hour, day or night, and she'll always be there for me and my family. So thank you. I would stop now, but I have to say something about my brother, so. Okay. Thank you. My brother is a very special individual. He has a special wife and a special family of wonderful kids. One of the special things about them is that they brought up a wonderful family in New York. That's a very difficult thing to see. I ran away to Des Moines to save myself from all that. Right? right? Growing up in New York was not easy for all of us. Living there now is not easy, especially lately. But what's special about my brother is he was also always there. When I didn't have someone to help me finish the science project, he was there. Thank God he's 5 years older, smart. And he was accepted to medical school when I first started 9th grade. Even though he's only 4 years and 10 months older than me. So figure that out, like he skipped a few things in the middle there. And he was a senior in college. He's always there for me. I remember science projects and helping with this, helping with that, teaching me how to drive, teaching me how to read the Torah, teaching me how to daven. So many of you here could thank him for a lot of the things the talents that I didn't have that he taught me. But I'll tell you what the most special thing about my brother is the fact that he's a very dedicated Jew and one of the best doctors in this country. And you should all never need it, but not only is he a pediatric gastroenterologist, he's now like vice president of a hospital, and literally he has saved lives like any doctor. And we should always think about how wonderful doctors are, how they help us. We should never need it, but lives are saved. But he's a man of great compassion and great caring, great intensity and drive, not for himself. With all of that, my brother's commitment to Torah and Yiddishkeit and Judaism is an inspiration to me. You know, it's easy to do a lot of things in Judaism when you have the title rabbi, because you're supposed to. People are looking at you. And because, you know, you got to move up in your career, you got to do things, you know. You can have a lot of ulterior motives. Not that I have, but it's possible. For a person who's a professional, it's very easy to lose yourself in the professional world. And from the first days that he started looking for where to go after medical school, he looked for a place to go where his medical profession wouldn't be counter to his belief in Judaism and his faithfulness to Jewish law and Torah. And no matter whatever other things he's accomplished, that I think is probably the most important thing. And my children have heard me tell them countless of times, this is one thing you should look, the most important thing you should look up to your uncle, because he's 6'4", you're going to look up to him anyway. But look up to him for the fact that he's such a wonderful and committed doctor helping the world, but also a wonderful and committed Jew. I'd like to call upon Dr. Ephraim, Dr. Eddie Simpser to address us. Thank you.
I don't know how you follow that introduction, my God. Thank you very much, Beryl. Of course, my speech is somewhere between New York and Des Moines, so I'm going to speak extemporaneously. Beryl said I shouldn't tell you that because then you won't listen anymore, but wait, there might be some surprises, so please try to pay attention. I'm going to speak to Chaya, who is a very special young lady, and I have a little message for you, Chaya. Beryl talked a little bit about in-laws and about parents, and the parshiot, the portions of the Torah that we're reading right now in Bereshis, talk to us and teach us about our forefathers, about the parents of our nation. And the question that comes up actually about the writing of the Torah was that really people say the Torah could have started in Shemot, where it gives us the first mitzvah for Bnei Yisrael, the first commandment for the children of Israel during the time when they were in Mitzrayim. And there are various reasons given for why the Torah starts at Bereshis and why it goes through all of the stories. And one of the reasons I think that's important, why we need to read these portions and why we need to read them and understand them carefully, is that there are many, many lessons for us to learn in these parshiot. And when we look at the different forefathers and at their different features, there's a lot that we can learn from them. And in fact, I read an interpretation that not only can we learn from what our forefathers did, but there are certain attributes of the forefathers that became part and parcel of the nation of Israel, of the children of Israel. Avraham Avinu, Abraham, was a man of immense belief and kindness. And that feature has been imprinted on the people of Israel throughout. And Yitzchak, his son, although very quiet, and the Torah doesn't talk much about Yitzchak, one feature we all recognize from this week's Parsha is his courage. Here's a young man following his father, recognizing that he's about to be sacrificed, and he goes quietly with courage, with belief in God. And that feature of courage was imbued in the people of Israel. And the trials and tribulations that our forefathers went through, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, those trials and tribulations gave us as a nation the strength to go through many, many trials and tribulations over the ages. I think on a smaller level, we just spoke a little bit on a national level of us as Jews, I want to talk, Chaya, about us now as a family and lessons that we can learn as your father started to talk about our parents. And I believe that we're all, to some extent, products, of course, of our parents. We strive to be as good. We never believe we can be as good as our parents. And I think that it's very important to look at your grandparents, Chaya, and learn from your grandparents. As much as you're going to learn from your parents, look at the people that your grandparents are, the special, special people that they are, and learn from them. And I think that you have had time, you've spent time with the Parsons, and you clearly can see their special features. You've spent time with Bubby Rose and are able to see her special features, but you've not had an opportunity, unfortunately, to spend time with Zaidi Shlomo, with my father, Beryl's father, who unfortunately was nifter a little while before you were born. And he was a very, very special man. And I don't want to take away from the simcha, because he lived his life b'simcha. And your Bubby Rose and your Zaidi Shlomo lived through the Holocaust. And most of their family are not here. And we don't have a large extended family because of the Holocaust. And our parents dedicated their lives to remembering the Holocaust. And us children were the most important way that my father and my mother could show the Nazis, Yimach Shemam, that the Jewish people will continue forever. And I want you to recognize that when we talk about belief in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and when you want to get an example of belief and emunah, bitachon, in God, look to your grandparents. Look to your Bubby and your Zaidi, who went through the Shoah and yet remained true believers in God, who performed mitzvos while they were in the Holocaust and afterwards, and didn't forsake God, but rather the Holocaust made them stronger. And Zaidi Shlomo really lived his entire life as a remembrance of what happened, to make sure that we didn't forget. And so I felt it was very important today to keep that remembrance going and to deliver to you the message that it's important to take the examples not just from your wonderful parents, who certainly are giving much to Klal Yisrael, to the nation of Israel, by teaching Torah and by bringing Torah to communities. And clearly they've done a wonderful job here in Des Moines, and I'm especially proud. Nowadays, when I was younger, and when we were younger, Beryl was known as my brother. Now everywhere I go in the Jewish community, wherever I am, in any part of the world, you're Rabbi Simpser's brother. So I'm very proud to be Beryl Simpser's brother, and you should be very proud to be their daughter and to learn from them. But I'm also going to ask you to learn from your Bubbies and your Zaidis on both sides, because they're very, very special people, and they made us what we are, and we are what I call the She'eris HaPleita. We are what's left what they tried to get rid of, we're what's left. And Kanei Nahara, on the Simpser side of the family, I'm losing count now, there's 11 grandchildren, Kanei Nahara. No, 10 grandchildren. And going on 11 in Mitzvah Hashem. And that is the Sheris HaPleita, that we are going to continue on strong, and you should continue being the wonderful, wonderful young lady you are, learning Torah, doing mitzvos. May Hashem grant you only happiness and continued success in everything that you choose to do. Mazel tov.